I didn't flinch when she said she wanted to talk. That word had been losing weight in our house lately, like stale air echoing off empty walls. But I flinched when she walked in holding his hand. She didn't sit beside me at the dining table. No, Amelia pulled out a chair for him, in my spot, then turned to me like this was normal. "Meet Nate," she said, lips curled in a smile too calm to be innocent. "We've been seeing each other for a few months. I want to explore an open marriage." I stared at her. Not at the man. Not at the wine she poured for all three of us. Not at the trembling candlelight flickering over a meal I didn't know she cooked. Just at her. Her voice was steady. Almost cheerful. Like she was introducing a new recipe. "You're serious?" I asked, though I already knew. She leaned back in her chair, brushed her hair behind her ear, the same gesture she used when she used to lie to her parents over the phone. "I think this could save us. Monogamy is outdated. I read this article." Of course she read an article. Amelia always needed a theory to justify the chaos she unleashed. And him, this Nate guy, he just nodded like a smug stand-in from some liberal arts relationship podcast, dressed in a tailored shirt that screamed, "I've never been told no in my life." That's when it hit me. She wasn't asking. She was informing me. This wasn't a conversation, it was a declaration. She had already opened the marriage. I was just the last to know. What she didn't know. So had I. She thought she had the upper hand. That I'd beg. That I'd break. That I'd settle for sharing her. But I wasn't broken. I was building. And while she brought one lover to the table, I had two waiting for their invitation. Not to break her. To show her what it really looks like when love dies, gets buried, and comes back sharper. When Amelia and I first met, she wasn't like anyone I'd known before. She was all wit and sharp edges. Too smart, too confident, the kind of woman who didn't just walk into a room, she owned the room the moment she stepped into it. I was drawn in like a moth to fire, and just like that moth, I ignored the burn. Back then, she made me feel like I mattered. Like I was the man she'd been waiting for. Her eyes used to search for mine across crowded rooms, her hands always reaching for me when no one else was looking. There was a sense of intimacy in everything she did, deep, private, electric. But now she couldn't even remember the last time she asked me how my day went. I remember when it started to shift. I just landed a major investor for my app, a 2-year grind finally paying off. I came home buzzing, holding a bottle of champagne and wearing the dumbest grin on my face. I opened the door and found her curled up on the couch, phone in hand, texting. She didn't even look up. I told her the news. She smiled, barely. Then she said, "That's great, babe. Can you keep it down though? I'm replying to something important." That something important had a name. Nate. I didn't know it then. I suspected, sure, but I didn't want to be that guy. The paranoid husband. The guy who checks her messages, stalks her Instagram likes, becomes his own private investigator because the person he trusts the most now feels like a stranger in his home. But things kept piling up. New clothes she didn't tell me about. Evenings where she claimed to be out with the girls, but came home smelling like hotel soap and whiskey. A second toothbrush in our bathroom drawer that wasn't hers or mine. I asked once, just once, about the toothbrush. She laughed it off. "Maybe it's yours from an old pack," she said, not even bothering to make the lie believable. "You always forget what you buy." I let it go. Like a coward. Or maybe just like a man trying desperately not to believe his world was already falling apart. Then came the open marriage conversation. She dropped it over breakfast. Scrambled eggs. Coffee. A sleepy Tuesday. "I've been thinking," she said, sipping her black coffee like we were talking about weekend plans, "maybe we should explore other people." I blinked. "What? Open marriage? It's very modern. I've been reading about it. You know, emotionally secure couples make it work all the time." "Emotionally secure," I repeated, my voice hollow. "Yeah. Come on, we've been married 6 years. Maybe we're holding each other back from discovering who we really are." I stared at her. I didn't even know who I was looking at anymore. There was no emotion in her voice. No guilt. No warmth. Just a calculated coolness, like she was pitching a startup idea and already had the investor lined up. And deep down, I knew. Nate wasn't an idea. He was already in the picture. This open marriage pitch was just her way of giving herself permission without facing the full weight of what she'd done. But I played along. Maybe it was pride. Maybe it was painful. But something inside me snapped that day. Not with rage, not even with sorrow. Just a cold, quiet click. Because as much as Amelia had changed, so had I. I'd met Sophie 6 months earlier at a tech summit. She was the event photographer, sharp-eyed, unfiltered, unapologetic. She asked me for a quote on stage and ended up quoting me back to myself over dinner that night, laughing when I blushed. I told myself it was just friendship. Then there was Kira. I'm a regular at the coffee shop. She always remembered my order. One day, she noticed my hand shaking from stress, reached over the counter, and held it, just for a second, but long enough that I felt it days later. Neither relationship started with intention. I didn't go looking. I just stopped resisting what felt real. I hadn't crossed a line, not yet, when Amelia brought up the open marriage idea. But at that moment, she gave me permission I never asked for. She thought she was opening the door. What she didn't know was I was already standing in the hallway, keys in hand. From then on, I watched her carefully. The late-night phone calls she whispered. The quick showers after mysterious outings. The new lingerie tucked into the back of her drawer, tags still attached. Every lie she told, I stored. Not to confront her, not yet. I needed her to believe she had the upper hand. That I was slow to catch on. That she was in control. But behind every fake smile I gave her, every nod I pretended to understand, I was building my own freedom. Because this wasn't just betrayal. It was a game now. And I was done losing. I watched her pour wine for him. It wasn't the wine that made my stomach twist, it was the casual way she did it. Like she'd done it 100 times before. Like it was just another evening, just another guest. Except this guest was her lover. And this was our home. David, she said, gesturing toward the man now seated in my favorite chair, meet Nate. Nate, that name landed like a punch. Short, smug, self-assured. He stood, extended a hand like this was a networking event. He wore a tailored navy blazer, the kind you wear to brunch in the city when you're trying to look humble about your money. Pleasure, man, he said. Man. I took his hand, but I didn't return the grip. I looked at Amelia, at her expectant face, like this was a gift. Like I was supposed to smile and thank her for her honesty. Amelia, I said slowly, what is this? She blinked like I'd asked the color of the sky. I told you. I want to explore non-monogamy. And Nate and I, we have something real. Something real. I felt the floor tilt. This wasn't a confession. This was a presentation. She had framed this like growth. Like evolution. Like I should clap for her courage. We've been struggling, David, she went on, placing a hand on Nate's thigh like punctuation. You've been distant. And I don't want to cheat. I want openness. Transparency. Honesty. Honesty. The word sliced deeper than a lie. She wasn't sorry. She was proud. My breath felt heavier than it should. I looked at the two of them, dressed like a damn lifestyle ad, and I wondered if I was crazy for thinking this was betrayal. So, let me get this straight, I said, voice barely above a whisper. You're seeing someone else. You're bringing him into our home. Our marriage. And you want me to be, what? Supportive? She smiled again. You don't have to do anything. Just, be open to new dynamics. We can both have freedom. You can explore too. I stared at her. I don't know what I hated more, that she thought I was naive enough to accept this, or that part of me had already known. Her late nights. The distant eyes. The way she stopped reaching for my hand in public. But hearing it, seeing it, was something else. I need some air, I muttered. I walked past them and stepped outside, leaning against the porch column like it was the only thing holding me upright. The world felt muffled. The wind didn't feel like wind. I could still hear their muffled laughter through the glass. I should have walked away right then. I packed my things. Slammed a door. But I didn't. I stood there. Because beneath the burn, something colder was crawling up my spine. Not rage. Not heartbreak. Calculation. She had made her move. Her power play. And I wasn't going to scream. I wasn't going to beg. I was going to answer it. Because if Amelia wanted to open the door to this new world, she had no idea what I'd been quietly building behind mine. Sophie. Kira. Two women who entered my life like moonlight through a cracked ceiling. I hadn't looked for them. I hadn't planned to feel anything. But they found me when Amelia was slipping away. And now they were my secret too. I stayed quiet that night. Ate the awkward dinner. Listened to Nate brag about working in fintech. I watched Amelia act like she was the conductor of some enlightened symphony. But inside, I was setting dominoes. Maybe you're right, I told her, clearing my plate. Maybe this could work. If we're honest. She lit up like she'd won something. I knew you'd understand, she said. I smiled. She didn't notice the crack in it. Because what she didn't know was that I wasn't going to compete. I was going to win. I should have been angry. Or devastated. Or jealous. But I wasn't. What I felt was fascination. Watching Amelia with Nate wasn't as painful as I expected. It was enlightening. She was performing. Not loving. She kissed him like she wanted me to see. She giggled too loudly, touched too often, lingered in doorways just long enough to catch my eye. She thought flaunting him would break me. But the truth? It only confirmed I'd already been broken, long before she brought him into our bed emotionally, and eventually, physically. So I watched. I studied. And while Amelia thought I was silently suffering, I was doing the one thing she'd never expect. I was evolving. I saw Sophie more. Kira too. It began as escapism, brief sanctuary in their presence, where I didn't have to pretend I was okay. But it quickly shifted. With Sophie, it was easy. We didn't even need words sometimes. She could just look at me and know where the cracks were forming. Kira was fire, steady but fierce. She asked the hard questions. She didn't let me hide. I don't think you're angry enough, she told me one night, curled against me on my couch, legs draped over mine like we'd been doing this for years. I don't think I have any anger left, I replied. You do, she whispered, touching my chest. Right here. It's just buried under the hurt. She was right. I wasn't okay. I just didn't want Amelia to see that. The shift started small. Amelia began asking more questions. Where were you last night? With Sophie. Again. I smiled. She listens better than Nate. Her jaw tightened, but she played it cool. She had to. After all, she was the one who pitched this open freedom concept. She sold it like a TED Talk, evolved love, liberated desire, unchained hearts. But in practice, it stung her. Because I wasn't playing the jealous, bitter husband anymore. I was winning. A week later, I was getting ready for a late dinner with Kira. I stood in front of the mirror adjusting my shirt when Amelia leaned on the doorframe behind me. You're seeing someone again tonight? She asked. Someone? I turned. Her name is Kira. Right, she scoffed. The barista. Graphic designer now. She's talented. And kind. Amelia folded her arms. So now you're building relationships with them? I paused. Why does that surprise you? Isn't that what we're doing now? Exploring. Growing. Her eyes narrowed. You're doing this to get back at me. I laughed, gently. That's the difference, Amelia. I'm not doing this for you at all. The next morning, Nate was gone. I don't know where, and I didn't ask. Amelia sat on the couch in her robe, sipping her third coffee like she was trying to hold something down, guilt, maybe, or regret. I had a dream last night, she said without looking at me. You left me. Packed your things and just disappeared. I sat across from her, quietly. You said you didn't love me anymore. And? I asked. She finally looked up. Is that what's happening? I didn't answer. Not because I didn't know, but because I didn't owe her reassurance anymore. You made this bed, I said softly. Don't be shocked, I don't want to lie in it with you. She bit her lip. That night, she didn't go to Nate's. She stayed home. She even cooked spaghetti, my favorite. She tried small talk, laughter, and shared memories. It was odd, desperate. At the end of the meal, she touched my hand. I miss us, she whispered. I looked her dead in the eye. You killed us the night you brought another man into our home and poured wine like it was a celebration. She pulled away like I'd slapped her. I didn't care. 2 days later, Sophie and Kira invited me to dinner, together. I was nervous. I thought it might be awkward. It wasn't. They clicked. They laughed. They shared stories of me, teasing me in turns. It wasn't a competition. It was a connection. And somewhere between Kira's mockery of my playlists and Sophie's toast to second chances, I realized something. I was falling for both of them. Not in a reckless, player way. But in a real, terrifying, soul-level way. And the scariest part? They were falling for me too. A few days later, I returned home from an overnight stay at Sophie's. Amelia was waiting. Standing in the kitchen, arms folded, face stormy. So this is what you want now, she snapped. 2 girlfriends. That's your revenge. No, I said calmly. It's my piece. Her lip curled. They'll use you. Like you did. She flinched. I leaned against the counter. You wanted an open marriage, I continued. But you expected me to sit quietly while you played house with Nate. You never thought I'd thrive without you. I thought we were experimenting, together. No. You wanted permission to betray me without guilt. But the moment I started living on my own terms, it became a threat. She looked lost. And for the first time, I felt nothing. No anger. No longing. Just release. Later that night, she tried once more. She knocked gently on my door, wearing the red silk slip she used to wear when we were in love. You remember this? She asked, stepping inside. I looked at her. Really looked. The woman I once adored was still beautiful, but hollow. Shallow. Not because of how she looked, but because of how little she saw me now. I do, I said. But it doesn't mean what it used to. She dropped the robe. Let me remind you, she whispered. I shook my head. I don't want reminders. I want honesty. Depth. Safety. And with you, that's gone. She pulled her robe back on slowly. Her voice cracked. I never thought you'd actually stop loving me. I smiled, but not cruelly. Neither did I. A few nights later, I asked Sophie and Kira to dinner, at our home. Amelia didn't know they were coming. But I wasn't hiding anymore. She opened the door expecting me, and saw them. Kira, confident. Sophie, radiant. Hi, Amelia, Sophie said warmly. Beautiful place. Amelia stepped aside, stunned. You brought them here. I live here too, I said. And they're part of my life now. We sat, ate, talked, not to mock her, but to show her that I was done hiding, that I had grown in ways she never expected. That night, as they left, Sophie kissed my cheek. Kira squeezed my hand. And Amelia stood at the door, watching with eyes that once sparkled with power, now dimmed with disbelief. You really love them, she whispered. I do. Her voice trembled. Then I lost you. You did, I said, locking the door gently. But I didn't leave. Amelia had no idea that her casual cruelty would spark something so deliberate in me. I wasn't vengeful by nature, but when someone hands you a dagger and dares you to use it, you either drop it, or learn to aim. She'd turned our home into a rotating door of supposed freedom. Every time I heard Nate's voice echoing through the hallway like he lived there, something in me hardened. But I didn't raise my voice. I didn't slam doors. I simply waited, quietly, patiently, like someone sharpening their blade in the dark. That's when the idea came to me, not an act of rage, but something more potent, exposure. It started with timing. Sophie and Kira weren't pawns in this. They weren't revenge flings. They were warmth in a world that had gone cold. Healing, connection, truth. But the more Amelia flaunted her affair like some TED talk on modern love, the more I realized the real power I held. I had something real. Something she could never fake, even if she tried. Then came the invitation. Amelia, always one for performance, decided to host a celebration of modern love. She printed elegant invites, took golden hour selfies with Nate, and captioned them with things like, boundaries are cages disguised as rules. Gag. Let's show people how evolved we are, she said, brushing her hair in the mirror. Progressive relationships, no secrets, no shame. I watched her through the reflection and asked, mind if I bring someone? She paused, mascara wand midair. Like, a date? I smiled. 2. Sophie and Kira. She blinked like I'd slapped her. You're still seeing them? Never stopped. Her jaw tensed. You're really bringing both. You brought your boyfriend into our marriage. I think it's only fair. For once, Amelia had no comeback. Her silence. That was my green light. I told Sophie and Kira. They didn't blink either. In fact, they were all in. They liked each other already, had met over coffee once when I was honest about my situation. They laughed at how twisted it all was, but they were never petty. They wanted truth, not drama. And they respected each other. Unlike Amelia. Let's do it, Kira said. Let her taste her own ideology. Time to burn the illusion, Sophie added. The night arrived. Our house, or what had once been our home, was transformed into a curated fantasy. String lights, scented candles, minimalist finger food, name cards in cursive. Nate stood by the bar like he was co-hosting the Met Gala. Amelia floated across the room like she was queen of the new world. Guests began to arrive, our mutual friends, some of her work colleagues, even a few neighbors. Everyone gave me that tight-lipped look that said, "Poor guy, stuck in the past while Amelia moves on." Then came the knock. Sophie was first, draped in crimson, elegant and calm. She walked in with grace, gave Amelia a polite smile, and kissed my cheek like it was the most natural thing in the world. 30 seconds later, Kira entered, wearing black silk and defiance like it was armor. She walked straight up to me and took my hand. Amelia froze. So did the energy in the room. "These are my partners," I said simply. "Sophie and Kira." Murmurs erupted like ripples in a still pond. Nate chuckled awkwardly. "Looks like the open door swings both ways." Amelia's face tightened. "You're in a relationship with both of them?" Kira stepped in. "Unlike your open marriage, we're not pretending to be evolved while destroying someone else. And we're not hurting each other in the name of freedom," Sophie added. "We actually love him." I didn't need to say anything. Their words pierced harder than anything I could have planned. The guests were rattled. Some looked impressed. Others are confused. But one thing was clear, Amelia no longer controlled the narrative. Dinner was awkward. Conversation came in broken bits. Amelia barely ate. Nate, oblivious, kept trying to make jokes about love being fluid, but the room wasn't having it. Then I stood and tapped my glass. "Thanks, everyone, for coming," I began, steady voice, steady heart. "I know tonight was supposed to be a celebration of love, but for me, it's closure." Amelia's head snapped toward me. "We signed the divorce papers this morning," I said, placing a sealed envelope beside her untouched plate. Gasps. Even Nate blinked like he didn't see that one coming. "I'm walking away. Not out of bitterness, but because I deserve better. And I found better. I'm in love with two women who see me, who didn't need to humiliate me to find themselves." Amelia looked like she might choke on her wine. Her eyes glistened, but she didn't speak. Maybe for the first time, she realized what it felt like to be the one left. "You brought your lover into our marriage," I said, my tone soft but firm. "But you never imagined I'd bring my future." The silence was perfect. Sophie slipped her hand in mine. Kira placed her hand on my back. And I turned. We walked out, 3 strong steps at a time. And for the first time in years, I felt no weight on my shoulders, only peace. I didn't burn the house down. I just showed her that I didn't need to live in it anymore. I never imagined peace would feel so quiet. No fireworks. No cinematic montage. Just a soft morning sun creeping through gauzy curtains, the scent of fresh coffee, and the muffled giggle of Sophie teasing Kira about her bedhead. It's been 6 weeks since I walked away from Amelia, for good. 6 weeks since I pushed those divorce papers across the table and told her she could keep Nate, but she'd never have me again. People think revenge is about rage. Explosions. Drama. But the real victory? It's in the silence after the storm. When you wake up without the weight of being unappreciated. When you stop shrinking yourself for someone who stopped seeing your worth a long time ago. Kira sleeps curled up beside me most nights, arms wrapped tight like I'm something precious. Sophie joins us on the weekends, sensitive, strong, and so wildly herself. I didn't plan for this kind of life. I just wanted love that didn't hurt. And somehow, in the wreckage Amelia left behind, I found exactly that. She reached out once. Just one message. "Do you think we gave up too soon?" I stared at that text for a full hour before deleting it without a word. Not because I hate her. I don't. I don't feel anything anymore. She tried to build her kingdom on my silence. And I let her, for too long. But the moment I found my voice again, it all crumbled. She didn't want an open marriage. She wanted control dressed up as progress. The irony? The moment I started living by her rules, she couldn't handle it. And when I chose not to play anymore, she finally realized what she'd lost. I bumped into her last week at an art gallery. One of Kira's pieces was featured, something raw and blue and bleeding. Amelia stood there for a long time, staring at it like it spoke a language only she understood. She turned when she noticed me. "Still with them?" she asked softly. "Still happy," I said. She smiled, but it never reached her eyes. "I thought I had control." "You did," I replied. "Until you didn't. We didn't hug. Didn't linger." I walked away before she could say anything else. Some endings don't need closure. Just distance. But just when I thought the chapter had closed, a shadow returned. Sophie's ex, Carter, showed up outside my apartment building last night. I recognized him from the photos, tall, clean-cut, the kind of man who thinks charm is currency and women are property. His face was calm, but his eyes carried a quiet rage. "I just want to talk," he said, hands in his pockets. I didn't invite him in. He looked past me, toward the elevator. "She's here, isn't she? With her little trio fantasy." I didn't answer. He stepped closer. "You think this is love? Playing house with two women who needed rescuing from their own damage?" I felt something old stir in my chest. That familiar instinct to protect, to fight. "I think this is none of your business," I said coldly. "Sophie left you for a reason." He smirked. "They always come back to me. Just a matter of time." Then he walked away. But something about the way he said it didn't sit right. Later that night, Sophie admitted he'd been texting again. "Kira found a note tucked under her car windshield this morning. No words, just a torn photo of us from our vacation. So maybe peace was just a pause. A breath before the next wave. I'm not afraid. Not anymore. But I know what's coming. And this time, I won't just survive it. I'll end it. For them. For me."